All right. Well, welcome to Wake Up to Your Life Magic, a podcast dedicated to talking about how to take leadership into the next era. And today I have with us Greg Kaiser from Management Mastery. Hello, Greg. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Helmut. I'm waking up.
Right, you're waking up, right? Thanks so much. Yes, and speaking of waking up, you can check us out at Wake Up to Your Life Magic, or check out the book and information about it at wakeuptoyourlifemagic.com. Now, Greg, you are waking up. Tell me what you mean when you say you're waking up.
Well, I was recording another 60-second short this morning,
Yeah.
and technical issues are not my friend. So pretend I don't look angry now, right?
Okay. Okay, I gotcha. You're
I'm full.
shifting energies.
Yeah, I'm fully caffeinated though, so we're good there.
Okay, we're good. We're good. Well, Greg, tell the audience a little bit about what you do.
Thank you. So, what Management Mastery does, our goal, mission is to help managers and executives to focus on focus their time and their energy, importantly, on the things that create economic value. So, you've been out there. There's lots of distractions when you're a manager, and you need tools to help you focus on the things that are going to create economic value. We do most of our work with for profit businesses. So it'd be a little different if you were in some other space. Our focus is on for profit.
Gotcha. And I think one of the things that's really interesting and important about what you do is you really direct your attention on the management level. So you're not at the executive suite necessarily. You may influence them, but you're really helping managers produce more in their areas, is my understanding, right?
Exactly, because our approach is to do training on fundamentals. So I was doing some research the other day. Charter Management Institute, which you may have heard of, they did a survey in 2023. A full 82% of managers, this number like knocked me out of my chair. A full 82% of managers say they never received formal management or leadership training when they were elevated into their first management role. I'm not sure how anybody expected them to do well. Go, here's your
Yeah.
new job, go do it.
Yeah, you really have to seek out. I think that's the reality. It's on us as workers to seek out, right, the information that expands us, and you provide that,
Yeah, like lifetime learners. Those are the
right?
people that typically do well.
Agreed. So let's take a step back and think about you learning. What has been your most defining moment for audience members to kind of hear a story about someone's defining moment and how that changed things for you?
This is a great question because you never know when these things are going to pop up. So at one point, it was, call it mid-career, relatively close to my mid-career. Somebody from HR came to me and said, "Hey, we're doing our annual assessments. Did you know," which always gets your attention, "did you know that all of the team leads in the entire sales organization are people that previously worked for you?" Like, that's fascinating. No, I didn't know that. But then as I sat and thought about it, I had consciously tried to develop the people I worked with, managers, over a number of years. That was super nice validation that the efforts were paying off and that I was pretty good at it.
Yeah, and that was defining for you.
Right, because you have these ideas in your head that, oh, this was based on my own experience, right? Most managers don't get trained. So I consciously said, I am going to train the managers. And I had a whole regimen worked out that, okay, when you start, these are the things you need to know. Here's how you need to divide your time. Here are the things you need to focus on. And I refined it over time. Obviously, when you first start this stuff, you're not that good at it. But if you keep trying, you do the work, you get better at it. And that just validated to me that this is training managers is important. And it's important to them too, because it ends up accelerating their career. They pick up the set of skills, foundational skills that they can take with them wherever they go. And people like that.
They do. They do. Well, and it's not just like it, they need it. Right. So
Yeah.
you basically at that moment you were validated and this is what I do and this is how I'm going to go do more of this and create a business around this.
Yeah. And the fascinating thing is it was one step removed because at that time I was doing some fairly technical work, quantitative analysis, which is every bit as exciting as it sounds if you're a certain kind of person.
It actually
But
is.
the thing I trained the managers on was here's how managers, the best managers, manage. And yeah, at this moment in time, you're doing this technical work, but then they all subsequently went over into a sales organization and applied those same management principles and were very successful. So that just in my head, I'm like, no, this works. You give them this really strong foundation, they can pick it up and they can take it wherever they go, and it will work.
And they'll be effective. That's great. Now, tell me in the work that you're doing, and or maybe outside the work you're doing, one of the things we want to do on this podcast is inspire people. So, as you think about inspiring, what is the vision that you're chasing? If you look at the next 5 years, what is the vision that Greg is chasing with his work or personally that you want to share with our audience?
So this is interesting. My business partner and I, and my business partner also happens to be my wife, we were talking about this last week sometime. We have an internal mission for our organization, Management Mastery, and it's to develop managers so that they produce results, but they do it in a way that helps the people they work with retain their human dignity, which is kind of
Mm.
weird being in a mission statement, right? It's not the
No, I don't
typical
think
thing you
so.
would expect.
Yeah, I love it.
And
I love it.
and when you can get to that happy state, the people we're working with benefit, their organization benefits, and most importantly, the people around them, the organization benefits because there's just a different approach they bring to the work that they do.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the human dignity, this is the theme in Wake Up to Your Life Magic, right? There is this
Mhm.
desire for us to be human at work, right? And return to sort of some level of joy and life and meaning, right? When we're in the workplace.
Well, and this is fascinating because people, these type A business people tend to think these two things are mutually exclusive, and they're not. If you are working in such a way that you're motivating the people around you and their experience of working is better, you magically find they're more motivated and you get the thing you want, which is results. But there's different approaches you can take. So we've chosen to approach it in a pretty deliberate way and say, no, build into our foundational principles are you've got to respect people. And, if you've been around corporate environment long enough, you've had the unfortunate opportunity to observe lots of people that don't do that.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. There's a duality that's required in leadership where you're using both your mind around, the logic, the data, the profit, the cost, all that, right? And then there's the heart, right? And the connection and the motivation and
Yes.
the, right? And so it's balancing those two that can be so challenging at times, especially in corporate America where you're rewarded for the left, but you're not rewarded outwardly for the right. But creating dignity. I love that vision. Um, yeah,
Well, so
beautiful.
one of the things I did to help demonstrate this for people like visuals, right? Their brains process them better. So I created a simple two-circle Venn diagram. On the left-hand side is the thing you described. It's all the hard quantitative things. I call that the management side. On the right-hand side is leadership. And that's got a whole bunch of different, what are sometimes referred to as soft skills. How do you interact with people, etc.? How do you influence people? In the overlap, And this is why I said earlier, these things are not mutually exclusive. You can train people to say, yes, you need to access the right hand side of your brain, but you also need to access the left hand side of your brain. And when you marry those two things, really good things happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The strongest leaders are those who possess both and yield them strongly, right? Totally agreed. Yeah. So let's talk about maybe another aspect of what I want listeners to get is some vulnerability, right? Everything's not always great in our worlds as we're leading our businesses, right? And in your world, Greg, what's one thing that you wish someone could step in and help you with in your business today?
Well, you can't see it on the camera angle we're on, but I'm looking at the top of my desk. Administrative tasks are not my friend. They're right up there with technical stuff. So, paperwork, and it's necessary. You have to do it. I'll tell you a quick good lesson early. It's good to get these lessons in your business career early. So I'm low level guy in the sales organization, but my results are phenomenal. Like I'm crushing my numbers. So, I meet with some manager a couple levels above me and say, hey, when am I going to get promoted? And he said, well, I got a call from the home office the other day. You never turn your paperwork in on time. You don't even send your expense reports in on time. When you get that straightened out, let's talk. I'm like, okay, message received. And 6 months later, I got promoted. And throughout my career, I have never been good at administrative tasks and paperwork. I just got it to a point where it wasn't a negative or a detriment. It's just
Yeah.
not one of my strengths. Some people love it. Some people like every I's dotted and T's crossed and they send them in early instead of 2 weeks late. That would not be me. I have a different skill set.
Yeah. Well, so I appreciate that. First of all, your vulnerability and sharing that we all have our areas. And one of the things that I realize, I'm going to go to something that's very basic, but a key concept in waking up as people is what I call is breaking boxes, like breaking down limits that we have in our mind that define our identity. So in this example, because use yours as an example, right? I do the same thing. I'll be like, I'm not good at repetitive tasks, right? Like I can't stand doing the dishes. I can't, right? But
Yep.
what I have to do is basically redefine, break that entirely and start saying, I'm great at repetitive tasks. I enjoy them. And then I get to do the dishes and then I
I
do
have
them
cleaned
with
it.
joy. Yeah, I get to. And the thing is that in reality, we wind up holding ourselves back in so many areas. It can be everything. I'm not great at conversations on the phone. I'm not good at meeting new people. And in leadership, breaking your own boxes first to free yourself helps us do it with other people. So I appreciate your sharing that. Yeah, for sure. Any other comment on
The,
that?
the breaking your boxes visual is a really good one. So I'm a visual person. I like graphics and
Yeah.
things like that. And I also know this about myself. I'm a linear thinker. This is
Mm.
why earlier in my
Mhm.
career, I was a quantitative analysis. Like you
Mhm.
say, oh, repetitive tasks drive me nuts. I kind of like repetitive tasks. You just keep doing them until you find that one little thing. Like, oh, that's important.
Yeah.
But I when you get to some higher level in management, you figure out linear thinking doesn't work here every time. So maybe you should try something different.
Yeah. Try a new skill, try a new way.
Yeah.
Um, well, and what it really is though is our identity is everything, right? So when we tell ourselves, "I'm not this," "I'm not good at whatever," then we aren't. Like that's how powerful our our brains are. We speak
You are
into
what you think
existence.
about all day long.
Exactly. So speaking of that, I'm going to ask my surprise question, which won't be the more I do this podcast, people go watch it. They're like, I know the surprise question. But what I want to talk about is the most, um, I think of it as the most human thing about us as leaders. As humans, we uniquely ask ourselves, what am I doing on this planet? Why am I here? And we seek our whole lives that spiritual question, right? That sort of desire for connection, longing, purpose. And what's so interesting is that as an LGBT leader, we talk about coming out about that. That's great. But almost everyone is in the closet about their spirituality at work. We're often discouraged from talking about that. And what I wanted
Yep.
to ask you, Greg, is to the degree you feel comfortable, how has spirituality played a role in your work? And would you like to be able to be, what would you like to see about spirituality in the workplace in the future?
So this is a fascinating question that I've gone off and done a bunch of work on. My wife is very spiritual at a really high level, and it's fascinating to watch how she interacts with people. Like there's what's the right word? There's an energy that just comes out of her. And I always describe myself, I'm religious. I'm not particularly spiritual. But over the
Yes.
course of, let's call it the last 20 years, I said, you're missing something here. There's a whole bunch of rules that define a religion, and being religious, there's a whole higher level when you can transcend the rules and get to the feeling part, what was essentially intended with the
Mm-hmm.
early, religion. And it's been a very exciting journey, because you do, at least I do. I'm not going to assume everybody does this. You start to behave differently when you can transcend, oh, I'm boxed in by all these rules, to no, there is a higher level that we should pursue. And it's work. It's just as much work as learning the rules. It's actually probably much harder. So,
Absolutely.
sorry, long
So
answer to a simple question.
no, no, no. Actually, I've got another question to follow on because it's beautiful. What you just described as well. One of the other boxes we break out of is religion has rules, but spirit, right, and integrity and love test you even further than the rules, right? Because you get into the micro elements of intention.
It's harder.
So
That's what I said. It's harder.
yeah, yeah. And how does that play into the work environment for you?
Part of that, and probably a very important part, is you start to treat people differently. So one of the ways I explain it, going back to my right brain, machines are complicated, but you can figure them out. People are complex. They're much harder to figure out. If you talk to Mary on Monday, you have one experience. You talk to Mary on Wednesday, it's the same Mary, but you have an entirely different experience. Like, people are complex. Yeah, I gotta learn to work
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, we're like in these, I always think of it like we're in these machines, these organisms that are water and carbon and all those things, right? But there's this elf essence to us, right? This spiritual essence to us that we're like, what are you today? Where are you at? Where are you in your journey?
Yeah.
What version, and that's part of the beauty of leading humans. So thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. I think the point you were talking about human dignity earlier, right, and the work you do and this question are connected. Um,
Well,
there's, yeah,
inextricably connected. Well, I'll tell
absolutely.
you, I was doing some, and this is work most people don't like doing in the corporate world. I was doing a restructuring, is the
Yeah,
fancy name for it. And your listeners know what that means. And the guy that asked me to run the project said, "You know why I picked you for this? Because it was at least one ring farther afield from what I have been doing." He said,
yeah,
"I know you will treat people with respect. And this is going to be miserable, but I know I can count on you to treat people with respect." I'm like, okay, I can do that. I mean, I try to do that anyway. But it made a difference in who they chose to lead that type of initiative. So it's people don't, I think some people don't recognize that. It's what you talked about before. It's all about the numbers. You got to drive the number. You got to drive the number. Well, there's a couple different ways you could do that. You could choose to do it while you respect people, or you could just beat the hell out of them every day. It's a choice.
No, it's true. And that, so then, as a parent, you look then to the way we're educating children, and you realize what you just said kind of confirms the concept that, like, yes, you can learn all the math, science, all the structure, but if your values, if you don't have a deeper connection to the world around you, if you didn't learn that right somewhere, you won't be as valuable an employee. Actually, you can't contribute as much because you don't have a solid set of values that you work from.
Yeah, and that's so. Are you intentionally pressing my hot buttons, or did that just happen?
No, please go ahead, Greg.
the, the values thing, because I do consulting work, so I've been in and out of a bunch of different organizations. They have their corporate values prominently displayed in the lobby. These are our values. You go onto their website, these are our values. And then you go into the organization and you meet the people and you say, that value thing that you have posted prominently in your lobby, where is it? Like, that's meaningless. It's words. People, they might listen to what you say. They pay really close attention to what you do. And that's if you can help people to understand that, because you use the example of children. Your kids watch everything you do. If you say, like, as I said to my children, you shouldn't smoke while I have a cigar in my hand, that's not really terribly effective.
No, it's true. It's true. And there's this connection, from the doing, I call it's the being, right? So the being doing connection, right? You can say, hey, we love our people, right? But if everything you do doesn't reflect that, then the reality is you don't love people. You're not loving, right? You got to take it back to, I am not loving, right? So I'm not being loving.
Well, and so I tried to approach that in a different way, in a way that resonates with managers. If you say, people are our greatest asset, like, no, an asset's a thing you put on your balance sheet. Mm-hmm. So if you're treating people like something that resides on their balance sheet, that sends a message to them. They understand that. Even if they don't consciously understand it, they understand it. So if you can get people like jarred out of that, what do you call it? Breaking the boxes. If you can get them to break out of that box and say, well, when you say people are our greatest asset, you should back that up. You should back that up with some tangible actions that demonstrate to people, we really value you. Let us show you all the ways we value you. Versus, you're our greatest asset. And we have a special line for you on our balance sheet.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to do. I will say, as someone who's been in many corporate environments, being loving, being sincere, being connected is often not rewarded in the organization. So many of you all may be listening and going, you know what? I try to be that person. And sometimes you are the island, in an ocean, and you get the value of the people I touch and connect with. I'm giving value to. I'm enjoying my life, despite the fact that maybe other parts of my corporation aren't, right? And that's just something you have to self-determine in yourself to do.
Well, and that's so you're touching on cultural fit. So if you perceive yourself as an island in an ocean, like, wow, we might have a cultural fit problem here. That then it's decision time. Can I change the whole ocean?
Yeah, I want to encourage those corporate leaders and those individuals out there who, like, the reality is sometimes you're like, this is where I'm at, right? So you can't be miserable where you're at, right? Do what's in your consciousness, in your spiritual guidance. So this is what I'm going to do while I'm here. And maybe you are looking for the next thing, right? But don't be miserable where you're at,
Well, because it spills over. It's so obvious. It's painful.
Yeah, and then it ruins your own
And
life. You know, there's a whole
that's
other part of your life.
yeah, and that's that Stephen Covey thing. You've got your circle of influence, which is an island is a good analogy for that, right? And then the ocean is the circle of concern. Well, you can't really control the ocean, but you can sure as heck control the island that you're sitting on, also your circle of influence. Focus your effort there, and hopefully it'll expand your island a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know as a corporate leader, when you're sort of in the C-suite in the boardroom, then you can actually start going, like, how do we change the culture? Right. And that's where then you can maybe shift new things that aren't being felt by the rest of the team. So depending on where you're at, right, you can have a different level of impact. I'm so curious.
But
Yeah, go ahead.
no, you hit on a key point. It has to start at the top because that's where everybody's looking for guidance. So if the guidance is our EPS has to go up by 7%, okay, that sends a message. Our EPS has to go up by 7%. You're a business, you have to do that. Here's how we're going to do it. So you're wrapping the quantitative with a contextual experience for the people that have to go do it. And that's very different.
No, it's true. I had this thought when you were doing that. It's like
It's like
the boardroom, sort of like, what's their top? What do they look to, right, for their inspiration? How are they guiding the ship in the board and in the C-suite, right? And that's really important. The kind of leadership, right, that they look to in
Yep.
their lives. What are their sources for inspiration? So critical as you think then about guiding the whole ship, right?
Yes, guiding, steering.
Yeah. So, Greg, let me ask you this. I want to ask you one other thing that might inspire our listeners, and that's really just something, a truth that you know now, but that you wish someone had told you sooner.
Yeah, so this was more, I wish somebody would have told me this because I had to do it the hard way, which is figured out myself. That
Yeah.
there are no shortcuts or hacks, which is a word that drives me nuts, on the road to success. That there's no shortcut. You have to go do the work, and you have to do it in a sustained fashion because you hear people talk about overnight success and then you read their backstory and they've been working on it for 10 years. Like, well, no, they got discovered overnight, but they have this 10 years of really hard work dragging behind them somewhere, and they didn't give up. They just kept doing the work because they believed this is the right thing to do. And you can motivate yourself if you're doing the right thing. You can't motivate yourself if you mentioned it earlier, people hate their job. They're typically not the most motivated people in the world. They got kids in private school, they got kids going to college. So they'll come into a job they hate, probably not giving it everything they have.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And you're right. The expectation to success is like that. I think a lot of people look on their social media and they see this, they see that, and they think, man, I can just instantly become, or I want that, like that. And
Yeah.
the reality is, like you said, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of faith, which you said, a belief in some outcome, right? And a lot of life isn't that sexy. A lot of life is doing dishes,
Yeah,
getting laundry done, right?
It's doing your
We have,
expense reports, helmet.
yeah, and I don't know. I feel like if you were, if the 70s and 80s, a quieter life that was about your neighbors and you go to work, but you enjoyed and engaged in the people, the reality is relationships take time. Just like you were saying, success, people got to get to really know you and who you really are.
It's work. You have to
Yeah.
work at it. It doesn't organically. People like to think, oh, this just happens organically. No, actually, you put some effort into it. So the buzzword that's out there now is community. Everybody wants to talk about communities. It's exactly what you described. like, oh, I have these neighbors, and it's kind of incumbent on me to interact well with my neighbors, and then we'll build a strong. The word they use now is community. The concept has always been out there. It's just been repositioned, I suppose, for marketing purposes. So
Yeah,
I
no,
agree with you.
well, and I think the reason that that's becoming more keen is because so many people are pursuing money at the cost of relationship, pursuing
Yep.
ego at the cost of connection, right? And reality, it's just like we talked about the left and the right, right? The you can have all the right things done, right? You can have great AI machines that are going to produce, instantly products and ship them and deliver them without a human involved. But if there's no human to sell it to, what's the point, right?
Well, and you brought up AI. That's what I made my 60-second video on earlier this morning. This should be inspiring to all the managers. There is one thing AI can't do. And people are like, no, it's a super genius, it's super intelligence. AI can't collaborate. Human beings collaborate, people collaborate one at a time. AI is a fabulous research tool, and the latest models do ridiculously smart things, but that's where it ends.
Yeah,
You need to
you know,
pick that work up and carry it forward.
yeah. I tend to think of two things. One, I think of feeling, right? So your feeling of love for your brother who might be dealing with a mental health illness, right, might drive
Yep.
you to go ask AI, how can we use AI to solve for, you know, this behavior, right? And maybe there's a way, but that feeling that you have asking it is uniquely human, right?
Well, and that's why I
Um,
think from the early days of AI, it was pretty smart that you don't ask AI questions, you prompt it.
mhm.
Well, that language matters because a prompt is initiated outside AI. The example you
Yeah,
gave is great. I have a relative that has a mental health issue, and being a good person, I want to help with that. Let me go get resources to help with that. And you prompt the AI to get the resources that you need.
yeah.
So
And no, it's interesting. The other element that I think is really important. That's why I started this podcast. That's why I wrote this book. Is the spirituality, the faith, the belief in, like, where are we going? Where do we want to end up? What kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to make it better for the next generation through what we're creating, or worse? That leadership, that spiritual vision, is uniquely human, right? It's something that we can go say, we're going to use AI this way or not. And it's
right.
important to wake up, to that reality.
Well, and you use the two key words is uniquely human. So I gave the example AI is incapable of collaboration. That's because collaboration is a uniquely human pursuit. So you got to build on your strengths. Like, hey, we have an advantage here. We should make the most of it. And people will recognize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I see more than anything is that AI can enable us to do what our ancestors barely dreamed of doing, right?
Yep.
The amount of ways we can apply AI in areas of raising the consciousness, educating people, ensuring wealth goes to everyone who wants to put forth the effort, right? There's a
Key point.
there's a world we can create that we could never create before, because our time won't be done doing mundane things. It can be pushed into more things that are good. And that's why I think AI gives us this opportunity to wake up to how incredible our lives really are if we push them into directions of meaning and purpose. And so thanks for being here, Greg. This is what
No,
we're here
I
for.
wholeheartedly agree. That's one of the more intelligent takes I've heard on AI versus I can outsource my customer service department. Okay. That's one
Yeah,
way you
I
could
think
use
of,
it.
it's so funny. I say this, and I really believe this, and I believe this is true for history, right? Fear and greed move fast, right? They
Yep.
do. Fear moves fast, greed moves fast, right? The reality is that love and sharing move slower, but they are stronger. And so
Sustainable.
our challenge is to see how can AI make us stronger and better? And the reality, Greg, is it becomes a moral question. It becomes a why are we doing this? Business was created to love one another initially, right? You went and made tomatoes, and I went and did some woodwork, and then we
Yeah.
exchanged tomatoes for woodwork, and we helped each other get along in the village, and that was the core of business, and that's what we will return to. AI gives us the opportunity to return to
Yes.
something more human. So this was fun, Greg. This is a
Agree. Hey,
great
thank you,
conversation.
Helmut. That you took the conversation in a couple directions I didn't expect, which is always fun.
Yeah. Well, I hope that anyone who's listening, that just have the opportunity to think more deeply about the work that we're doing. Whether you're a manager, whether you're a frontline worker, a newbie who's just starting out, or a corporate executive who's determining the culture and direction of your company, these questions are the questions of the new era of AI. And they're the ones we're going to be answering, and we just got to choose the ones that our ancestors would be proud of, right?
Ideally.
Right. Thank you, Greg, so much. How can people reach out to you or connect with you?
Yeah. So the couple different ways. The simplest way is Management Mastery has a website, as most organizations do. It's managementmastery.solutions. And
Okay.
then we're on LinkedIn. You can find us on LinkedIn. We post content all the time. And those are probably the two easiest ways to get to us. If you go to one of those, you'll be able to either DM me or send another message that I'll
Awesome.
see right away.
Awesome. And again, Greg's really specialized at helping managers to make the most of their work and really focus on getting the output and results that they need with transferable skills to other areas in the company when they're done with that. Boom, boom. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for listening. This has been actually our very first episode of Wake Up to Your Life Magic. We're so excited. I already have like 5 other guests lined up.
Oh,
Always
fantastic.
asking ourselves how we can wake up, as leaders in business to create the kind of world that we'd love to see. Thank you so much and have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Helmut. Appreciate it.